How can I make this about Pokemon? Wait a minute. As we know, Pokemon has a lot of different animals or concepts representing one of the titular Pokemon, like a bird, or a fish, or the concept of an omnipotent creator who could at any point destroy reality as we know it. But with well over 1000 of them, we reach a point where it's pretty easy to forget that certain Pokemon even exist. The popularity of the Pokemon doesn't even have to be part of the equation either. Sometimes the games themselves don't do a great job of showing off all the new and exciting critters in a generation, either because they're only available in a postgame, or they can only be found at one specific location with an encounter rate of 2% during a Sunday night. Obviously it makes sense that some Pokemon are really rare, like the legendaries, which you can only catch once per playthrough, or certain story encounters like Kecleon in the Hoenn games. Talking about the Kecleon specifically, however, if you don't want the static one, you have to find one at 1% odds, which is absurd. Now you could argue that it's only the case for these games, and to an extent you're right, but only slightly, because in all other games where Kecleon is available, it's usually a 5% encounter or 10% under very specific circumstances. Or you could find it in a friend safari at a respectable 33% if you can find someone who has it in a safari. Good luck with that. But yeah, they could have made it much more common if they wanted to, but for some reason Game Freak sees it as a treasure mon, if you will, and the same applies to today's Pokemon. Castform! What the f was that? Yes, the embodiment of weather mechanics ever since Gen 3, Castform. For whatever reason, this goofy little guy is one of the harder Pokemon to obtain throughout the series. But let's start at the beginning. In Gen 3, where you could only get a single one of them as a gift from the Weather Institute after freeing them from one of the evil teams. So if you want to shiny hunt it, you can only get it via soft resets. And realistically only in Ruby and Sapphire with a functioning battery because of how the RNG works. Don't even try Emerald, since its RNG process is the exact same as Ruby and Sapphire with a dead battery, meaning that you will only hit the same frames over and over again and potentially never get a shiny. How's it looking in Gen 4? Well, here it is actually possible to find a Castform in the wild, although wild has some massive quotation marks attached to it, because you can only find it in the trophy garden, as one of the special spawns that only appear when you talk to the backlot mention's owner. There's a total of 16 different special spawns, so getting the mon that you want can take a while, and even if you get it, only appears 5% at a time. Interestingly, there are differences between Diamond and Pearl and Platinum. In Platinum, all the Pokemon you can catch have their levels raised, and also, for whatever reason, they got rid of Porygon from the special spawn pool and replaced it with Ditto, which is a crazy decision. But the level increase has quite a big impact that might not be immediately noticeable, but I will talk about that later. The only other way of getting a Castform in Gen 4 is from the Pokewalker in the Treehouse course, after 5000 steps. Additionally, that course requires 15,000 watts to unlock, so yeah, it might take a while. It would be a pretty cool Pokewalker shiny though. But enough of that. In Gen 5 you can only get it in Black and White 2 on Route 6 as a shaking spot encounter, but only at a 5% rate. Probably one of the more tedious ways of encountering a Castform in any game, although you can increase your chances ever so slightly by using specific pass powers. There also used to be another way of obtaining a Castform. Back when the Gen 5 games released, it was possible to get a Castform from the now long defunct Dream World website in the Pleasant Forests, and only after you had 5000 Dream points. Interestingly, making it the only way of getting a Dream Ball Castform to this day. With Gen 6, we're going back to the roots with this one. Only way of getting a Castform is from the Weather Institute in Auras, but shiny hunting it would be a good chunk easier, not only because of the double shiny odds, but also because you don't have to deal with any battery or RNG issues. Gen 7 is where it gets interesting, as well as absurd. Sun, Moon, and the Ultra games share the same requirements and locations, except for one instance, but I'm gonna talk about that in a moment. Not only are these games the most interesting ones in the way of how you find Castform, they're also the games with the most locations where you can catch one. But how do you get one? Well, you see, in Gen 7 there is a new type of battle introduced, SOS battles. And those of you that have tried to hunt a mon from one of those, that are usually a pretty good way of finding a shiny. Especially since after 70 defeated mon, the shiny chance increases by 3 shiny rolls, meaning you either have a 1 in 1024 chance without a charm, or a 1 in 683 chance with the charm. But how do you initiate SOS battles? Well, you see, first First you have to find a wild encounter and get it to low health, with moves like False Swipe. Now the weakened mon will have the chance of calling an ally, and those allies are predetermined by the species of the Pokemon that is calling for help. Sometimes the location also plays a factor here, but only for very specific cases. General rule of thumb is that it's mostly Pokemon from the same evolution line or species that will appear, with exceptions, like Corsola and Marini, which is the only way to find a Marini. But to get back on track, to optimize your chance of a Pokemon calling for an ally, you also have to use an Adrenaline Orb, which increases the likelihood of this happening. Also important to mention is that there are certain species that will never call for help. Here's that list. So if you ever planned on hunting one of these via SOS encounters, no. Okay, since I've explained the basics of SOS battles, I also have to mention that there's one important section that I haven't mentioned. The fact that there are a few Pokemon that are obtainable from SOS battles, but additionally need a specific weather effect during the battle to even appear. And as you might guess, Castform is one of them. It can only be found in the following locations: Route 17, Lush Jungle, and Executor Island, Tapu Village, Mount Lanakila in Sun and Moon, Mount Lanakila Base in the Ultra games. I have no clue why they changed it between games, especially considering that the entirety of Mount Lanakila shared the same percentages in Sun and Moon, but whatever. Hyena Desert, and last but not least, Miley Garden. Now, the more perceptive of you might have noticed something. There's a way to create a near infinite battle with regular SOS encounters, but here that's not really the case. Not only can Castform not call for help itself, but also you have to consider that you need to keep the first Pokemon alive to keep spawning them. So Hail and Sandstorm are basically out of the picture, and even if you don't have to worry about health, Hail, Sandstorm and Rain, as well as their ability counterparts, are only active for 5 turns ever since Gen 6. And then you have to reuse the move or switch out the Pokemon, which can be pretty annoying. But there is one possible way to optimize getting a Castform this way. Go to one of the locations where during rain, Castform has an 11% encounter rate. Do the regular infinite battle setup with Harvest, a Leper Berry, Skill Swap and Trick, and then switch to Kyogre with the blue orb. Use Primal Reversion and its ability Primordial Sea will activate, which is Endless Rain. As long as you don't switch out the Kyogre, this is the most optimal way of getting a shiny Castform in these games. But we're still not done, since there's also Gen 8. The most recent generation where you could obtain a Castform, and also the first generation where it's Hail, Rain and Sun forms all have a shiny palette, which they've never had until now, which is weird. But anyway, Castform can be encountered in BDSP, just like in the originals in the Trophy Garden, with the same level and everything. Only difference being that the shiny odds are the modern ones. So what do you think I chose as the game to get a shiny Castform in, if you don't want to soft reset? If you picked anything but the original Diamond and Pearl, then you're wrong. This might be shocking, but let me explain it to you. First off, Gen 3 and 6 are soft reset tons, so yeah. Gen 5 is incredibly tedious in just finding a single one of them, so I have fun finding a shiny. Gen 7 might be the most efficient one overall, but the hardware slowdowns and the sometimes long waits between Castform checks kinda makes this one more tedious in my mind, even if odds-wise this is the way. And now we come to the reason why I didn't choose BDSP. Well, you see, the way special spawns work in the remakes is dependent on a real-time clock. So you can't just change the time on your system like in the originals. And then the next factor is there's a specific sequence that will always be followed. The special spawns aren't random anymore and you can't reset them. The sequence always starts at Clefairy and goes in National Dex order through the special spawns until we reach Castform, which takes 13 days. During this time frame, you could easily find a 1 in 8192 shiny, and that is what stopped me from using BDSP. I'm also not entirely sure if the sequence can only advance when you speak to the mansion's owner every day, or if it can continue through the list without having to play the game. Pretty sure it's the former, but feel free to correct me. So you're wondering what my setup was. Well, you first reset the special spawn until the owner gives it to you. You can soft reset it, and then you ideally will need a level 18 Pokemon with an ability that increases your encounter rate, so Illuminate for example, as well as the White Flute item, which gives your encounter rate another 50% boost on top of that, which you can either transfer in from the home games or trade it over from Platinum as a reward for returning to Sweet Key at the Grand Lake Hotel, or find it on the floor in Hot Gold and Soul Silver on Route 47 and trade it over that way. What you also need is Repelled, so stock up on those, and that's how you can reduce the pool of Pokemon in the Trophy Gun to only 2, Pikachu and Castform. You're probably wondering why I didn't choose Pokemon Platinum. Well, you see, as I mentioned earlier, they increased the levels of all the Pokemon that can be found in the Trophy Garden. And due to this, Castform is now available at level 22. However, there's no Pokemon that is exclusively under level 22. The closest we get is Pichu, which starts at level 21, but goes up to level 22. So that way, the Repel trick has no use. You can't isolate Castform. All the other Pokemon are still available and will still show up in the encounter pool. That's why Pokemon Diamond and Pearl are the best games to hunt in, because that way Castform is level 18 and every single other Pokemon aside from Pikachu will be isolated. But yeah, now back to Diamond and Pearl. Now, I'm not entirely sure what the actual percentages encounter-wise are now, since according to the encounter rate calculator, Pikachu has 3 different slots that make up 10% in total, and since the Repel trick affects encounter slots and not species, it makes Castform only 14% instead of 50, what one might expect. But I'm not entirely sure if these numbers are correct. I don't even know where these 3 encounter slots come from. So I'm just gonna say that the encounter rate is either 14% or 50%. It's probably closer to 50, I think, though. But yeah, I think I've talked enough about a Pokemon no one even thinks about. So here's the shiny that I found. I hope you enjoy. No way! No way! It's already over! It's already over! Oh my goodness! No way! No freaking way! No freaking way! Shiny Castform! Shiny Castform! I apologize for the layout. It's from a lower live video. Shiny Castform! No freaking way, dude! What? Shiny Castform, that's crazy. I'm still not sure if it is like actually like 14% or if it's like closer to 50. I don't know. I'm not sure what kind of ball I should use. Design wise, obviously the Master Ball is like the closest. Actually no, the Heal Ball is. One. And the broke out. One, 2, 3, and out. It's interesting how in these games you can just easily tell how quickly you know, if a Pokemon breaks out or not, because it takes so long for them to break out compared to being caught, you know. Broke out. Yeah, it's really easy to tell. Shiny Castform. Now I don't have any audio or anything but right now, but broke out again. Oops. Broke out. 2, 3, and it broke out. It's struggling. Well, struggling in a sense of, you know, not wanting to be caught, I guess. This guy, man. Broke out. 2. Broke out. Broke out. One, 2, 3, and it broke. 1, and it broke out again. 1, 2, broke out. Broke out. And it broke out. Come on, man. It's a 25% chance. Come on, man. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Thank you. Shiny Castform. I don't know how many encounters it was. It probably, if I were to guess, probably like 5 or 6,000 encounters overall. Gladly take it. I really do. Imagine if that was another shiny. Regular Castform. Regular Shincho. Regular Meditite, I think. Shiny Castform. Very nice. Yes, after just little over 4,000 encounters, I found a shiny Castform. Pretty cool to have another faceless hunt. Also, yes, the next video is going to be about a specific house on 4 Island in which Lorelei lives, but it's gonna be a journey, especially since it's not just me grinding for ages, but you'll see it in a few weeks. But now, let me show off the Castform and its forms in BDSP. Thank you so much for watching. I wasn't expecting to talk this much about a little boingaboof like Castform, but I guess it happens. Anyway, see you guys later.